Hi guys, and welcome to the long-awaited ant update. So obviously over winter I didn't really film anything or do an update on them just because they were hibernating and really inactive. But they're starting to come out of that now. Now it's slightly warming up. If you can say 10 degrees is slightly warming up. But we've had a few warm days. And so I got them out the other day. I put the camera on them, sort of left it on, so that's what you're watching right now. So a quick update on them. Firstly, I'm happy to see the queen is actually looking really nice and healthy. There are plenty of workers, although I don't think there's any more than there were before winter because I hadn't seen any pupae or anything, so I think it's just the same amount, but we have quite a few. You'll notice as well in this footage, a little later on, they'll just stop moving. Now this footage is actually sped up by 11 or 12 times. So I think this is just them all sleeping, and they'll sleep for ages, and all of a sudden the entire nest will just wake up, and if you keep watching you'll notice it. And also, something else I noticed is I think they stored a lot of their food in their cotton ball and also amongst the excavator clay, because if you see my Outworld video, you know I put excavator clay in that and they started taking it back into the test tube. And I noticed they were feeding like the queen and the larvae some food, but they've blocked off the area to the Outworld, so I'm assuming that this is just all their storage. So that was the ANTS update, and I know it was short, but I'd rather keep it short and real than just make stuff up and waffle on for ages. But I thought I would take the second part of this video to talk about keeping ants as pets or, as a hobby, because a lot of people over winter binge watched the series and said to me, I'm thinking of getting into the hobby, what's it like, can you give me some tips? So I thought I'd do it in this video. So the first thing to think about is what type of ant you're going to get. Most people will tell you, and I probably agree, that you want to get like a native beginner sort of species, an easy species to look after. And for me that was the Lasius Nigers, the black garden ant, because I can easily get a queen in the garden. Obviously don't take a queen out of an already existing nest, but when you get all the flying ants you can collect a queen then. And also if one escapes, it's not the worst thing. Like if I had a fire ant and it got out and like it got to my geckos or my cat or something like that, I would not be happy. But having just a black garden ant really isn't, the worst thing. And in some places it is actually illegal to ship queens, so you can't just buy exotic ones, you have to deal with the native ones. So look into the laws and, look into each species and see what would suit you. The next thing to think about is lifespan. I think a lot of people forget that the queens can actually sometimes live up to like 20 years or more. So it's quite a commitment. So also look into that. Another thing is cost. So you'll find that for the size of things you buy for ants, it can be quite expensive. So first of all, you start off with a test tube, which isn't expensive, and they can actually stay in there for a long time. But then they need an Outworld. And they aren't necessarily expensive, it really depends what you get. But then when you go into getting formicariums and all these new sort of nests that are coming out nowadays, there's like tons coming out, they can get really expensive. And a lot of people tell me that I should buy stuff from Ants Canada, and I've said this before, the shipping to the UK is unreal. Like I can't justify spending that much money to get a piece of acrylic over here. And also it seems like there are so many new nests coming out that you kind of think, well, is this going to be worth the money if it's going to be out of date and you've found something better? I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the channel, I watch it, that he's got some awesome nests and everything, but it's just not affordable for me. So you've got to look into that. I wouldn't say it's unreasonably expensive. Like if you're already keeping reptiles or something, you already know how expensive things can be. But just for the size of certain things, it can be expensive. But that moves me on to the next point, the size of things. The good thing about ants is they don't necessarily take up that much room. This obviously depends on the species, because some grow really quickly and you need to keep getting bigger and bigger or more formicariums to expand. But for the Lasius Nigers I keep, they really don't take up that much room in comparison to most pets people keep, hamsters, guinea pigs, rabbits and all of that. So that's definitely a positive. They are also fairly low maintenance. Once again, this depends on the species, but my type of ants that I keep are low maintenance. The only thing that is a concern is when things go wrong and they can escape. If you ever saw the episode where it's like going in crisis mode when I got that nest, that there was just something a little bit wrong with the nest and they all started escaping. When that happens, it's not good. Because if say your rabbit escapes, you can sort of find it usually. It's sort of big enough to notice it's escaped and that you can get it. If an ant escapes, it's very difficult. So that's a bit of a con. That's a bit of an annoying thing that happens. The other thing is they're very sensitive. So if you ever saw the episode where I gave them an already dead worm and pretty much nearly like wiped out my entire colony, you'll know that one wrong move can wipe out the nest. So that's kind of worrying. The other thing you want to have is patience, because this can be a long process. Some people are lucky enough that their nest expands really quickly and they have a big colony already, but I've been keeping these for 1.5 years, I think, or nearly 2 years, and they aren't a particularly big colony, so it can take time. I know if you watch the earlier videos, I got the queen, she laid some eggs, I think they hatched, and only one larvae pupated, so I had one worker for a good few months before any more came along, so you really need some patience. And the last thing is, you'll find that you have a newfound respect for ants, and this sounds silly, and especially to people who really, insects aren't their thing, but when you actually witness the queen lay her eggs and you watch the egg go into a larvae and then pupate and you finally get a worker and you realise how much effort goes into just getting that one worker, you really feel for the guys that get boiling hot water tipped over them or like ant powder to kill them. Like, I get that ants are pests and stuff, but you definitely get some feels like, oh my goodness, I'm raising my babies over here and people are just boiling them over there. So, I don't know, it's just things you experience in life and you do definitely get a whole new respect for ants. But I hope that's given you a bit of an insight and I hope you've enjoyed this footage. They're a bit more active than they were before, but they're still slightly sleepy because they will sleep for ages. That's another thing though, like, then they're not like, they won't entertain you every single day, and throughout winter you probably won't bother to see them because they are hibernating. But when you get a camera on them and you can sometimes just watch them, you're like, oh, this is kind of interesting. But they, they go in and out of phases and they sleep for ages. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully it's helped, and thank you very much for watching.